people should know diagnostically, um, OCD, ADHD, mood disorders, and anxiety are all best friends on the
Hmm.
spectrum. And a lot of people come in with multiple diagnoses to my office. And sometimes I might even argue misdiagnosed. It depends on what level of testing. And this is why we say get a professional to diagnose you, because what someone in the audience might think is ADHD might very well be OCD.
Hey there, Vibers. Welcome to the Vibe with Kai podcast, where we keep it real, we keep it relatable, and we keep it a little bit funny as we dive into all things mental health, ADHD, and introversion. My name is Kai. I'm your host, and each week we're going to tackle life struggles with honesty, humor, and a whole lot of heart. So whether you're here for practical advice or a little validation or just a laugh about what life is like as an adult in today's world, listen, you are in the right place. We are not about toxic positivity here. We are all about being genuine to each other and to ourselves. And we're talking about real things. And we want to encourage each other and remind you that you are not alone. With that said, my friends, sit back, relax, and let's vibe through this together and enjoy today's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast.
What's going on, friends? It's your boy, Kai. Welcome to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. In today's episode, we're diving into something that so many of us with ADHD struggle with: emotional regulation and anxiety. But don't worry, you're not alone. There is help with all of this. I'm joined today by Vanessa Gorelkin, an incredible occupational therapist based in Scottsdale, Arizona. My family lives in Phoenix, Arizona, so I'm very familiar with the Arizona area. With nearly 30 years of experience, she blends occupational therapy with trauma-informed care, DBT, ACT, and so much more. Whether it's ADHD, panic attacks, stress, Vanessa offers real-life, hands-on strategies that actually work. And I want to welcome our guest, Vanessa Gorelkin, to the show. Hi, Vanessa. Hello, hello.
Hi.
I'm so
Hi.
happy. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to talk to you and your
Yeah,
audience. Yay.
absolutely, absolutely. I want to get right to it. I want to start at the beginning for you, um, just so the audience can get to know you a little bit. What led you to become an occupational therapist in the first place? Why did you choose mental health as a path for you?
Yeah, I that's actually a really good question. I have always wanted to help people in my
Hmm.
life. And early on, I always say, whatever you wanted to do in second grade is a really good indicator of what you might want to do with your life. You don't have to end up that way. But like by the time I was in second grade, I used to go to the library and look at the body books. I'm like
Hmm.
making quotations with my fingers, because I was always interested in how we work and the human mind and
Hmm.
the human body. And so, fast forward until I was towards the end of my college career when I was a English major, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I didn't really see myself becoming a lawyer like the rest of my family. And so
Hmm.
I went and I volunteered in a rehab facility over the summer between my junior and my senior year. And I saw the occupational therapist at work, and I was like, that's amazing. At that time, I saw them working with stroke patients. But as soon as I reached occupational therapy school, I really wanted to go into mental health and wellness, but it wasn't as big of a thing back 30 years ago. So I did do a lot of physical disabilities and training in acute care and things like that, that really adds value to my practice to this day. But it's always
Hmm.
been an interest area for me.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned whatever you dreamed of doing in second grade is probably what I can go on record by saying that I am not a firefighter. I am not a firefighter. It didn't
Okay.
work out for me.
Okay.
My second grade self was going to be very disappointed when he finds out.
Well, okay. Well, I'm sorry to the second grade self, but as sometimes, I think that is like a classic, there are some rules that apply to
Sure.
everything, except
Yeah,
some rules apply to nothing. So it's a
that's fair.
silly rule. And no matter what, hopefully everybody can eventually find their way to doing something
That's
in their
fair.
life that is really fulfilling.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. It's funny
Yeah.
because you had mentioned, how long you've been in this field. You've been in it for nearly 30 years now. With such extensive amount of knowledge and time and experience in this field, what do you feel has changed the most, especially with how we talk about ADHD and anxiety, emotional regulation? What has changed from when you first started studying this to now in 2025?
Everything has changed.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's start with, so if you're doing the math, I was in occupational therapy school starting in 1992 to 1994. And during that
Hmm.
time, social media was not a thing. I didn't have an email address. I mean, things were really, really different. We were like, traveling around in horse and wagons and things like, I'm kidding. Okay. But like, still, we were really not technologically advanced at that time. And people were definitely really quiet and really private about any sort of mental health condition. Like I've heard on your podcast, you're talking about your issues with depression. I went
Hmm.
through a major depression, my first episode of major depression in graduate school while I was working at Payne Whitney Clinic, which is in New York City, a very well renowned psychiatric hospital, working
Hmm.
on the depressive disorders unit. And I couldn't tell anybody that I was depressed. So it was so different. I mean, just imagining that, like, I had to keep that to myself and I had to do what I called my Academy Award winning performance, where I pretended to be okay because I didn't want anybody to know and think I was, not that I think this now, but then that I was like weak or something was wrong with me. Not like, I mean, obviously something was wrong with me, but like that I was defective in some way. So that is one of the main things that has changed, the diminishment of shaming, the ability of people to be able to come out and speak about their issues and really be honest in public. But there is a downside as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still new to the mental health world, particularly ADHD, because I was only diagnosed about 3 years ago, 3, 4 years ago. So this is all still fairly new to me. And even just in the last 3 or 4 years that I've been on this journey, it's changed a lot just in the last 4 years, and I can only imagine what it's like, in the last 30, right? And it got me thinking as I was like prepping for this interview. I feel as though a lot of times when people hear the term occupational therapist, I feel like sometimes they'll think mainly about the physical side of things, and I'm one of those people. I usually will use physical ailments to help people understand mental health side of things. You know what I'm saying? But obviously, occupational therapy is a lot more than physical rehab. Can you break down what OT looks like when it comes from a mental health perspective?
Mm-hmm. That is a terrific question. Sorry for the commentary on the
Oh, no, you're
perfect
fine. You're
question.
fine.
Great question. I'm not actually a teacher, but OTs kind of act as teachers. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, anyway, so occupational therapists help people to live their lives to the fullest. And so when you think about an occupational therapist, if you have a grandma in a nursing home, you might see an OT working with her there. If you have a child in school, or if you were a child in school a few years ago, maybe you had an OT for your ADHD, or maybe you know somebody
Hmm.
who has autism and they have an OT. And so and then there's various things that go on for people all through the lifespan that are occupational therapy related. So occupational therapists, just to speak of it in a medical framework, if you think of occupational therapists like we are physicians, if you tell somebody, "Oh, I met a physician at a party last night," at meaning a doctor, uh, and they say, "Oh, great," they're not going to know what kind of doctor. Is it a pulmonologist? Is it a rehab doctor? Is it a psychiatrist? So if you talk to an OT, here's a little party trick. If you ever meet an OT in person, ask them, "Oh, what kind of OT do you practice?" Because we follow, like, we're over the gamut. So, and I'm
Hmm.
going to combine in a little bit of your old question, your former question, and this question, because 30 years ago, I took a psychiatry class. I had a mental health rotation in graduate school, but occupational therapy and mental health was not nearly as big of a practice as I have made it in my career at this point. And how does occupational therapy work in mental health? Occupational therapy, I've been trailblazing, if you will, and using occupational therapy to help people with ADHD and neurodivergence, because my whole job and my whole professional outlook has always been, how do I help people live their lives the best way that they can, and without trying to fix them in some way if they are not broken. So in other words, my attitude about people with ADHD is, y'all are not broken. You work differently, and you may need help with things. You may need habilitation. You may need help to get into your environment and work well in your environment, but you're not a broken person. So it's not like you need rehabilitation. It's not like you had an accident and you broke your leg and we need to fix your walking pattern. So hopefully that makes like a little bit of sense about how OTs work in mental health. We're not looking to fix or cure as much as we're looking to help people be able to live around the problem, with the problem, without resisting the problem, so to speak.
Right. And listening to you describe what how OT helps from a mental health standpoint, I can't help but ask, what is the difference, if there is any, between occupational therapy and like traditional talk therapy for somebody with ADHD? Is there a difference? Like, how is it the approach? Like, what exactly is the difference between the two?
The kind of fundamental training and perspective is different.
Mhm.
So typically in psychotherapy or talk therapy, as you're speaking of, or other kinds of therapies where it's talk therapy, let's say with a counselor, let's say a social worker, things of that nature, that is a kind of therapy where there's a lot of listening, not a whole lot of like, do this, try that kind of coaching mentality. There's not a lot of um, covering of physical health issues, exercise, nutrition, things like that. And so occupational therapists look at the entire person. So if you go to, let's say, a psychologist and you talk about depression, that psychologist is going to listen to you and they're going to tell you, they're going to talk to you, they're going to educate you about your depression, and they can be very effective. But if you want somebody who's going to help you real time problem solve in that session today, I'm your gal, so to speak. And
Uh-huh.
so the difference is really that occupational therapists act as coaches, and coaching has sort of really taken the name of something that OTs really do, which is fine, but I am a licensed professional. So you can really, and I talk about this a lot on my social media, and say that, you should be really careful what you're consuming, who you're talking to, what their training is, find out what their credentials and their education is, because an OT has a whole lot more information and training than just not trash coaches. Some coaches are excellent and amazing. I've been on coach podcasts before. They've been really great, but you have to be careful and you want to make sure that they're credentialed. So I think I kind of went far afield of your question a little bit, but hopefully.
No, that answers it. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And that actually leads to the first part that I kind of want to dive into here, which is ADHD, emotional regulation, and anxiety. Because I know that's something that I have to manage. I know there's a lot of people that listen to this and watch this that have to manage this as well. Um, ADHD brains often feel too much all at once, right?
Mhm.
So what does emotional regulation actually mean, and why is it so difficult for people like me with ADHD?
Mhm. Well, first of all, let's go back to the definition of, or like the criteria to um, diagnose somebody with ADHD. No one's getting
Hmm.
diagnosed on this podcast, but the two main the two main criteria are difficulties with attention in one way or another, and the other one is hyperactivity and impulsivity. Right. And so what you're talking about, I think, is sort of a hyperactivity inside of your mind. And so it is like hard for you to clamp down on any one thing at any given moment, particularly when you are distressed, angry, overwhelmed, sensory challenged, things of that nature. And so when we talk about emotion regulation for people with or emotional distress tolerance and management for people with ADHD, we talk about giving people real life tools and skills to manage big feelings in a moment. Like, okay, here's an example, good example, right? A lot of the time, people with ADHD have trouble with interrupting people while they're talking. Is this familiar? Yeah, you're nodding your head. So,
Uh-huh.
it's like you're in a conversation, and it's like your friend group, and you're just always popping in, and people are like, I'm going to use your name here. And shut up, Kai. Like, oh, you're with your friends, and they're sort of like, it's like a chill atmosphere. And then all of a sudden
For
you're
the
like,
record, I've heard that many times. I've heard that many, many times.
Shut up. Well, I've definitely heard "Shut up, Vanessa," and I don't have but like whatever. Anyway, but the point is that that can be really distressing on two levels. Number one, it kicks up feelings of being rejected and like different and too much, as you said earlier. And it also kicks up this feeling of like, I do not know how to control myself in these moments. And I am a like full grown adult sometimes. Like sometimes it's kids, but sometimes it's full grown adults. And so it's like, what do I do? And occupational therapists help people through, well, we were talking about emotion regulation, but I think the first steps are sort of helping people pace social conversations, helping people figure out what are the physical and visual cues that people are stopping talking and starting talking. Sometimes ADHD kids, they spend so much time being criticized in their childhood that they can't even pick up on what are the like nuances, like the little things that they need to know socially in their lives. So when they become adults and everyone is like, shut up, Kai, shut up, Vanessa, be quiet, step back, someone else is trying to talk, you're telling too long of a story, blah, blah, blah. Or you're never getting to the point of the story. People sometimes need practice for that, but that's not really what emotion regulation does. That's social skills training, which OTs do. In emotion regulation, we talk about ways to manage the big feeling that is making you pop off in a conversation. So, for example, I might teach you box breathing. I don't know if you're familiar with box breathing. There are different types of box breathing. The main thing that I want to say to anyone out there listening is that you want to really lengthen your exhale. Let's say you're having a really important conversation with someone. It's really significant and you don't want the shut up, or you don't want to be told like, stop yelling or stop getting too emotional here. Right. So what you want to do is focus on, lengthening your exhale if you're getting overwhelmed, like just literally sighing or like blowing out like you're blowing out a candle. I'm going to blow into the microphone. Hopefully that won't be too annoying. Like, may not even hear it. That's such an annoying sound. But um, so, but box breathing is breathe in for 4, hold for 6, breathe out for 8. And if that's a hard number, you can like shift the numbers, but as long as the exhale is longer, you can even go down to 2s. So you could do like 2, breathe in for 2, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, as long as it's longer than the first part of the exercise. And that helps stimulate your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve starts at the top of your head, it goes all the way into your gut, and it is the rest and digest nerve for us. And so that's what we want to do when we're getting upset. We want to figure out how to stimulate that vagus nerve. I have some other like tips and tricks if you want me to throw them in here.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So another one is, and again, it depends on the availability of these things, but I do suggest to people to create a crisis kit to have along with you if you go to school, if you go to work, even in your house, like if, you know, upstairs, downstairs, anywhere you need it. And it's like, you know, like a little, you know, kind of packet of things that you can use. So alcohol swabs are really good. I just had some on my desk and I left them, but you know, like in the hospital where they, or like in a medical center, they're going to take blood
Hmm.
or something, they rip open an alcohol swab. You can smell one of those. That will take away nausea. That will change your sort of uh chemistry for a moment. It's not a drug. It's just a quick like wake up and like and also calm down at the same time. That's one. Um Leaving the room and splashing cold water on your face, or getting those ice packs, the ones that you like smack on something. What are they called? Disposable
Sure.
ice
Yeah.
pack. You can put one on the back of your neck. That really helps with calming yourself and soothing yourself very quickly. Freezing cold shower. That's why people love polar plunges. But again, you can't, if you're upset in a moment and you're talking to somebody, you can't be like, excuse me, I have to go take a cold shower. So you need kind of, you need a group of these things. Various breathing exercises. Literal grounding is very good for rest and digest. So getting down on the floor if you're really upset. I was like meeting with a client of mine who she observed something really awful. Somebody was being really terrible to someone else in front of her in a public place. She came onto her session. She was kind of hyperventilating. I had her gather ice, put it in a bowl with some water, and then stick her face in the ice for 10 seconds and then come out of it. And we did that a few times with a towel nearby. And then she was able to breathe and we were able to talk, because when you're emotionally overwhelmed, you can't talk. You can't even explain what's going on to the next person. All you are is feelings and overwhelm.
Right. No, those are great tips, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, okay, I never thought to do that. I never thought to, especially the idea of the alcohol swabs,
Mhm.
which is actually I never thought of that either. But the way it seems like a way to like jumpstart yourself just like a little bit when you feel like you've stalled.
Mhm.
And that's something I'm definitely going to try, because I find that really really interesting. I for a moment before you said the word swabs, I thought you were just going to say you can just carry around alcohol. And I was like, okay, wait, hold on. Where is this going? Just carry around just a bottle of Fireball? That's going to solve all your problems. I'm like, I need to talk to your teacher about occupational therapy. I need.
Yeah, no, better screening, Kai. Like, who is this lady? She came on and told me to drink a bottle of Jack. What's going on? No, no. You're like, where are you?
Alcohol swabs, yes.
Yes. And actually, two others that I think are really great.
Hmm.
Actually, three. I just came across another recently.
Hmm.
Super sour candies. I've seen this
Hmm.
on TikTok too, because it does the same sort of thing. It just it takes you from the place where you are in that trauma moment,
Hmm.
especially if you're like having a fight or flight response, and it just brings you front and center. It grounds you in that moment. So super sour candies like Warheads, super duper spicy. People love spice for a reason. My son loves spice. I'm allowed to say he has ADHD and he loves that stuff. He's like, I just love what my brain feels like immediately after I eat something really, really spicy. And you can also like take a few, here I go with the shots, take a few like shot. I'm kind of, turning a bottle over, like if you're not watching this, like just like a hot sauce bottle on your tongue. That'll change the game for you. All you are is hot sauce on your tongue for a minute or two when you do that. Or you can drink like suck on a lemon. That's another one. And that's actually, you can really do that and you're sitting in a restaurant and you're trying to be, again, quiet yourself down, or you're having a high stakes conversation with people. You could kind of um suck on your lemon. Sometimes people do that for a moment to kind of clear their palate or whatever. It's socially acceptable to do.
You heard it here first, folks. Vanessa said that if you want to help, just take a couple shots. That's what she said. I'm just saying. She said take some shots. I'm like, all right, say less.
Yeah. Shot. Shots of
Shots of
hot
hot
sauce.
sauce, hot sauce, hot sauce. We need to
Exactly.
clarify.
Yeah.
One of the things that I also have to manage, in addition to my ADHD, obviously my anxiety. I have existential OCD as well, and I know a lot of times people have panic attacks. Sometimes, um, why do you feel people with ADHD oftentimes struggle with those things, or have symptoms similar to those things? Why particularly people with ADHD?
Well, I think that's here we go again. Great question, Kai. I do think it's an amazing question because people should know diagnostically, um, OCD, ADHD, mood disorders, and anxiety are all best friends on the
Hmm.
spectrum. And a lot of people come in with multiple diagnoses to my office. And sometimes I might even argue misdiagnosed. It depends on what level of testing or, and this is why we say get a professional to diagnose you, because what you think, not you, Kai, but like what someone in the audience might think is ADHD might very well be OCD. Or it might be ADHD with OCD, where ADHD is primary and OCD is secondary. I'll give you an example of that. Or let's just talk about, you're following me, right? So far about
Hmm.
what I'm saying. So, okay. Oop, don't pull the microphone down, Vanessa. Okay. Anyway, so with ADHD, right? This is sort of a distinguishing characteristic. People with ADHD feel anxious when, oftentimes, not every person, when they have to have an appointment and they have to leave the house at a certain time. They've experienced being late. they've experienced time blindness, they've experienced forgetfulness, they've experienced, losses of concentration or becoming over concentrated and missing appointments entirely. So quickly in their lives, they begin to get very, very anxious, right, about going to an appointment on time. We're talking about a person with ADHD. So they may create what is called a ritual or a schedule to get out of the house. And it may include, get my keys out of the refrigerator where I stick them because I always go in the refrigerator before I leave to fill my water cup. Do this, that, or the other thing. And it's done in a certain order, right? And then the person can get out of the house. That's a ritual, right? But a person with ADHD who does not have OCD will not feel like maybe a plane will crash if they don't do that ritual in that order. But somebody with OCD, and I am not making light of that symptom either. I mean, that's not funny. It's horrible, right? So, or you feel like your mother's going to die if you don't like do things, if you don't count 2, 4, 6, 8 before you wash your hands and then wash your hands 17 times, right? So I mean, it's terrifying and it feels like a real mind trap to have OCD. And I feel for people in the audience who deal with OCD and all of these conditions because it's very difficult. But so OCD, unlike ADHD, going backwards, is to say, like, let's say a person has an appointment and they're nervous about the appointment and they have OCD but not ADHD, they may have trouble getting out of the house because they can't do what feels right to the doorknob, or they feel like a certain level of what often I hear the word is discomfort, and they can't leave. They can't change their space at all because they can't even get themselves out because of a ritual or a belief or an anxiety. And they're so terrified that a bad thing is going to happen if they go and leave the house. So that's OCD alone. So I mean, I could go all day and sort of explain, and this is why we send people to psychologists, clinical psychologists, and psychiatrists for diagnosis. But if somebody comes in my office and they begin to talk about things, they say they have ADHD and they start talking to me about things that sound like OCD, I send them back because I mean, at least talk to them and say, hey, I think this is sounding like OCD. Let's talk to your doctor again and then see if they're medicated, maybe you might need a change, or what sort of things we might change in treatment. If I suspect it's OCD, there's a very gold standard treatment that we use that's different than for ADHD. This is why we need proper diagnoses for things. If I do
Hmm.
exposure and response prevention therapy to lateness for ADHD. So in other words, if I like repeatedly expose a person with ADHD to being late, they'll just be upset repeatedly. That's not going to help them at all. But a person with moral scrupulosity type OCD who is afraid to be late because they think that bad things will happen in the world if they're late, or like someone will get hit by a car if they're not out of the house by a certain time, that needs exposure and response prevention therapy. Really different. I don't know if I'm getting too technical, but
No,
you
no,
know,
no. That's all really good. No, I think that's all like, great, and that actually leads perfectly into the another side of like another set of things that are entangled and with ADHD, and that's trauma. And I think you might have been alluding to a part of that earlier today as well. But trauma, ADHD, and executive dysfunction, which you're also alluding to as well. Often those things are entangled with ADHD. So how can occupational therapy help with that?
well, occupational therapists can help with all of those things. First of all,
Mhm.
teasing out what is going on. Like, as I said,
Yeah.
I'm not your only diagnostician, but if you come into my office and see me to begin with, I certainly can give you a very, very good running start. I'm quite familiar. I've got my DSM back there. I know some people have issues with the DSM, but it's the best recipe book of disorders that we have, and I can begin to try to help someone tease out what's going on and figure out if they need to see another professional for further diagnosis. Usually the best thing to do, or rather, it is a good thing to do to see another professional if medication is warranted. If it's just an issue and you're not going to go have medication, just working with me is fine also, unless there's some life-threatening concern. I didn't answer your question though. So how does OT work with trauma, executive function, and there was another one in there.
ADHD, just how it is all entangled with ADHD.
Yeah. So in I'm going to put ADHD and executive function over to the right side for a minute and go over by the left side. Trauma is really different. So trauma, is a completely different ball of wax to treat. And you have to be trauma informed. But one of the things occupational therapists help people with are with tools for when they are having their trauma responses. So people with trauma, and I think this has been talked a lot about on social media, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And so but it doesn't really, freeze especially doesn't really look like, you're not like catatonically in one place, but you might be unable to stop scrolling your phone if you're traumatized and you're just like, I can't face the world. And you're not even saying that to yourself. You just can't stop what you're doing, that kind of thing. And so dealing with those responses is learning how to get out of frozen moments, what to do if you are feeling a sense of fight or flight. And that's what I was talking about earlier in terms of like, what if you're having an argument? I think that's how you were saying, I was alluding to it, because you might have a trauma response. Like, what if it is someone you've argued with that sort of is associated with trauma in your life, or somebody who has traumatized you or even been abusive to you? You have to learn skills to deal with that. And so, I mean, it kind of goes beyond our discussion today, but there are definitely skills you can use in particular when you're dealing with someone who has been awful to you when you were being brought up. And unfortunately, I have found in my practice, not to throw parents under the bus, I am a parent myself, but a lot of the times parents are inadvertently the authors of trauma for their children. It's very, I say a joke to lighten up the mood a little bit. I say, anyone who's experienced childhood should have therapy. So, and I am
I
a
agree.
therapist,
I
but
agree. 100%. 100%.
yeah, because parents don't mean to do the things they do most of the time that are causing kids trauma, but sometimes it can really traumatize kids if they're forced to do things that they're really not ready to do, or they're afraid of, or what have you. Anyway, I'm not here to trash parents, and like I said, I am a parent myself of a kid with ADHD, and it was not easy when he was growing up, even though I had a lot of information and skills. So, I love you and care about you if you are out there and you are feeling like, oh my God, what did I do to my kid? Do the best that you can and be informed. That's my advice about that.
Right. The other thing, and I had just learned about this thing fairly recently. I would say late last year is when I learned. I didn't even realize this was a thing, but this is rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD. Didn't even know what this was. If you can you take a moment to explain for people what that is and how it affects people with ADHD and what they can do about it?
Yes. So, first of all, let's say that researchers and experts in ADHD will tell you RSD, at least as far as I know in this moment, it is not held in the ADHD diagnosis. However, it is such a commonly felt feeling by people who have ADHD that while it is not diagnostic to have it, you can also be a highly sensitive person. You can have other issues where you feel rejection sensitive dysphoria, but it's not diagnostic for ADHD. I feel like I ought to say that because people often kind of get mixed up about that. However, let's talk about what rejection sensitive dysphoria means is, let's break it down. If you experience a rejection, you will be highly sensitive. You will really feel that pain of the rejection and be very dysphoric, sad, or depressed about it. So instead of it just being like my boyfriend or my girlfriend broke up with me, it is put me in bed. I need to be down for like 3 days. I feel like my life is coming to an end, and not in a dramatic way, in a genuine pain way. And something that a lot of people do not know is that these circuits where we feel emotional pain, they are on the same, our brain can't distinguish between emotional and physical pain under these circumstances. Emotional pain like this is sort of body pain as well. And so it feels like painful it's like somebody beat you up. emotionally, even though they didn't do anything directly to you. So that's what rejection sensitive dysphoria is often like for people. And I have some thoughts about things people can do if they're experiencing it, but I don't want to run
No,
away.
please. Yeah, please. No, I think it's important for people to, especially after hearing you explain what it is, and they're like, "Oh, wait, no, I know that feeling. What can I do about it?" I
Yeah.
think that'll help.
Yeah, and it is I will say, whether it's you're a parent of a kid who has ADHD and you don't have ADHD diagnosed yourself and you recognize that feeling, these are good tips for anybody experiencing a rejection. But for rejection sensitive dysphoria, number one, understanding what you're going through is a huge advantage. It's like right off out of the gate, I must be, if I am feeling this so hard and so bad, if my body is shaking, if I feel like, I don't even want to go on with things today. I don't want to go to my job. I can't go to school. I can't face these people. Oh, you now have a name for this. I'm feeling an episode of rejection sensitive dysphoria. Sometimes just knowing the name of it and knowing that it's episodic, it will go away as time passes. And a good thing to do to help yourself is to accept and acknowledge, and then use something that that's not I didn't make it up, radical acceptance. So you say to yourself, oh, I feel terrible. I feel so awful. I feel like I would rather just lay in my bed for a month than have to deal with work or school. But you can sort of say, oftentimes I say to my clients, well, you can feel bad at work and make your money and like maybe not be there 100%, but you can get your bag, so to speak, or you can lay in your bed and rot. Like, which one would you like to do? Not in a like a way that to say you don't matter, but to say I do matter and I feel terrible, but I'm going to do the terrible thing and get my responsibilities done. So that's one way to look at it. Taking really good care of yourself in those moments, doing those special things that make you feel better. Does it feel good to wrap up in a blanket? Does it feel good to talk to your best friend if you have one? Does it feel good to go outside and feel the sun on your face? Whatever. Just or watch your favorite movie. Go watch that reel of videos that you think is hilarious. Those sort of things, anything to really indulge in yourself so you can get past the moment is really important, and know that it doesn't last forever. That's the feeling that people describe to me a lot. They say, I just feel like I'm never going to feel better. But that's, we don't even know what never is. What is never? I've never had never. I don't know about you, but I don't know what never is. We've never,
No idea. No idea.
right? So take never out of your vocabulary
Yeah.
because you are going to feel better. It's just a matter of time.
Right, right. When I was doing my prep for this interview, I saw that you talk a lot about living in alignment with your values. What does that look like for someone with ADHD, especially for a lot of us who just feel like we're constantly off track? Like there is no alignment, like, or at least it's difficult to find that alignment. How can somebody with ADHD live in alignment with their values?
Yeah, so that's from the acceptance and commitment based therapy approach, living in alignment with your values. And it's actually a perfect follow up to what I just said, which is you could feel bad at home, or you could feel bad making money so that you can pay for groceries, or you can like just be at your job and not get another absence. So, in other words, being in alignment with your values, number one is uh, hopefully your values don't include beating the living crap out of yourself on a daily basis because you have ADHD. Maybe you need some education to learn that you have a brain that works a little differently. So, living in alignment with your values looks like number one, being kind to yourself and being kind to others around you, and also giving yourself a little slack. There is absolutely reason for mental health days and things like that. But living in alignment with your values is sometimes using that expression. Again, I taught this to my son. I heard it from him just recently. I can do hard things, because sometimes things are hard and we feel like giving up. And that is not to be toxically positive. Sometimes things are terrible. I mean, and looking around these days right now is feeling pretty terrible. So, but we have to keep going, because if our overall value is living our lives, trying to find some happiness, comfort, contentment, be with other people, help other people, enjoy our relationships in our life, those are your values. And so when you're living in alignment with those values, it may involve using some radical acceptance and saying things are hard right now, and I am still going to go and do this. The other thing is, with that same approach, you use something called defusion, Defusion. And that means that you and your feelings are not the same thing. In your head, right, you could say, I'm depressed, or you could say, I feel like I'm depressed today, or even better, I feel like I'm feeling depressed today. Because the further you step yourself away, the less convincing you're doing of yourself of that is that which is then going to interfere with required activities. And so there's some great handbooks for ACT, acceptance and commitment based therapy. Love that. These are all like the grandchildren of cognitive behavioral therapy, which I always get in trouble for saying this, but I'm not a fan. Not a fan of cognitive behavioral therapy, because, I can think my way out of anything. I don't know if you could tell by the way I'm talking, but I could just go all day. I could just tell you, so tell me not to catastrophize. I'll figure out a way to catastrophize about not catastrophizing. So it's not my favorite, but like the younger children of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which are like acceptance and commitment based therapy, a lot of T's, dialectical behavioral therapy, which I love, which is skills based and actually is based on cognitive behavioral therapy. Those are some really good therapies that come down the line that work really well and give us tools to help ourselves.
Right, right. I love that. This is all really, really good information. I know that the people listening and watching right now I hope you have your notebooks out, and I hope that you're taking down some of the knowledge that's being dropped by Vanessa today, because there's some really great stuff. I want to give some people some takeaway actionable items here, so that way, when they're finished listening to this podcast, like you've already dropped a lot, but I think that there's so much. This is never ending. Like it's just like there's so much here. But for somebody that's listening right now who feels as though they're just always drowning in stress and anxiety and all of that, and they're not even sure where to start, when it comes to finding the path forward. If they're listening right now, what would you say to them?
I would say you're going to be okay. Number one, I want you to bookmark this podcast. I want you to come back and I want you to hear these words. Everybody goes through difficult times in their lives, and sometimes it's you going through a period that feels like it will never end. And so what do you do when things are feeling like they will just always be terrible? You say to yourself, when you're going through hell, keep going. And then you get help. Now, I understand that therapy is expensive, but there are resources that are less expensive. You can look around for crisis lines. You can reach out. So I would always tell people to reach out to the people in their community if they can, even if they make friends, not even if they make friends online who have similar feelings, maybe discords that you're on, things of that nature. Reaching out and being honest about how you're feeling is really helpful. But knowing that nothing, even the worst times, don't last forever. They come to a close, and then you get to start feeling better. You never know what is right around the corner that's coming that can be better. And so maybe today is hard, but you can do today and then wake up and do it again tomorrow. And eventually things are going to change and be different. And, there are people in the world who care about you, and there are experiences you're going to have that are going to be wonderful in your life, but just maybe not today or this week. And so sometimes some
Right.
acceptance helps.
Right, right. You've helped so many people over the years, right? Over 30 years, Lord knows how many people you've helped. What's one thing that you wish everyone with ADHD, anxiety, any kind of neurodivergency here, what's one thing that you wish they understood about themselves?
You are a valuable person. just as you are. You don't need to change anything.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, because I think it's funny how there's so many people that are struggling with managing any sort of neurodivergency, and there's a lot of people out there, but it still feels like you're alone. When you're going through this, like I remember when I first got diagnosed with ADHD, like I knew that a lot of people were managing it. I knew that it was a thing, but I still felt like I was by myself and that nobody understood what I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I started to get help, it wasn't until I started to have conversations with people about their journey that I realized that number one, yeah, there's people that out there that do know what it feels like for me. But number two, and this is the most important part, as you mentioned before, there is help. You don't have to go through this alone. There is help out there for everybody. And by everybody, I mean everybody. No matter how much money you make, no matter where you live, it's there. It's there. You just got to find it. And sometimes it's a little bit harder than other times, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it. That it's not worth trying to find that help. If people wanted to connect with you and explore, your ideology and how you help people, what can they do?
I have a website. It's my name, VanessaGorelkin.com. I imagine it'll probably be linked in the show
Hmm.
notes, but it's VANESSAGORELKIN.com. I also have a new TikTok. I haven't been on TikTok much in the past couple of years, but I restarted my TikTok, and it's at OT Whisperer. So I hope you'll check that out as well. I don't know. I hope maybe Kai and I can do a live sometime
Yeah.
because apparently they will allow us to do a live, even if you're like a little tiny little creator like me. I mean, I used to do some videos. Some people may even know me from years ago, but I just restarted, and so you gotta
Hmm.
start small, and finding that audience is really important. But yeah, and I want to just add on to what you said, if you don't mind, and say,
Yeah.
um, definitely look on TikTok and Instagram. Just watch who you're talking to. I actually did this video on TikTok where I said, I mean, I don't want to give it away, but I just said there was this ADHD test, and then I do a follow up about it, and I talk about this notion of people trusting people online. You can't trust everybody. I believe, and I'm licensed and credentialed with a lot of experience. You can trust me. I can say that. But somebody who just came, out of nowhere and says, I know a lot about this or that, or it's not just ADHD, it's all sorts of stuff. Just watch who you're taking advice from. But there's tons of really great advice. There are, lots of therapists and some great coaches on TikTok. So as long as I always find myself looking outside on their website to see if they have any actual education, because I feel like that's really important. Now, people like accounts like yours, Kai, are amazing. Like yours are like the lived experience of people with ADHD. And so watching that too is a way to not be alone. So obviously, if you're here, you may know Kai's social media already, but like watching stuff like that is so helpful in not feeling alone as well, because you are not alone.
I appreciate that. I always say to people, I'm not a mental health professional, nor do I play one on TV. You know, I only talk about my own, personal experiences and my journey because I'm on this same journey as a lot of other people, and I'm learning things just like everybody else is. And I try to
Yeah.
use my platform to, meet people like you who have this knowledge that I can hopefully spread to other people and hopefully improve their life in some manner, even if it's like a little small step forward. So I appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat with me about this. I would love to have you back, to talk more
Sure.
about a variety of things regarding ADHD because anytime that I could speak with an expert, I'm just like, come on, let's go. I got tons of questions, from people.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And as Vanessa mentioned before, yeah, all of the links that, she was talking about, it's all going to be in the description of this podcast. So all you have to do is click to visit her website and to also follow her on the TikTok and all of that. And I would love to go live with you. That's no problem. I have no problem
That's
doing
fun.
that.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love questions. Like oftentimes I'm on podcasts and people are
Mhm.
reluctant to ask questions. Like they'll email me and say, like they'll contact me through my website and say, I have a question I just want to ask. And is it okay? And I'm like, sure, I love to answer questions. Or you could drop it on my TikTok. I mean, I can't treat anybody that I don't know. But if it's a general question or something that you want to know, like that's why I do these podcasts. I feel really passionate about my work and helping people live their lives the best that they can. And so, absolutely, hopefully, I'm an approachable character, and you'll hear me, see me around. And but absolutely, questions are welcomed for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, please go take advantage of this resource. It's one click away.
Thank-
That's all you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vanessa, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found a little bit of comfort in today's episode, and I hope that you're walking away with a little bit of encouragement, and I hope that you laughed a little bit along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a review. Let me know what you thought of the episode. I really want to hear your voice. I want to hear your story. I want to hear all about your journey. Let's keep the conversation going. Make sure you follow me on all of your favorite social media platforms. Follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, at The Vibe with Kai for more tips, more laughs, and more real talk. Remember, my friends, you are not alone on this journey. We are in this together. And until next time, stay kind to yourself, embrace the journey, and keep vibing. I'll catch you next time. Much love. Good vibes.